Chapter 55-52 Was this arrogant Yunchujio was dumbfounded. Was it her lack of knowledge or was Goei Batsao spouting nonsense? This stone was Goei Bakao's father and mother? What the hell? Goei Batsao ignored Yunchujio and held the stone with a silly smile on its face. Then, it said to Yunchujio, "Now it seems that many of my parents are still alive. You have to help me find them in the future. Do you hear me?" Yunchujio, what did she mean by they? How many parents could there be? Just as Yunchujio was about to speak, Goei Batsao said again, "If I can find more of my parents, I can leave your Danon. Do you think you can help me find them?" "Help. I will definitely help. Is what you said true? If you find more of these stones, you can leave my Dantian?" Yunchujio asked excitedly. Goei Bakao's eyes flashed. "Of course it's true. I never lie." Yunchujio thought about the taste of these words. Why did it sound more and more like a lie? Goei Batsao was afraid that Yunchujio would be suspicious, so he quickly said, "It's getting late. Quickly crush the jade token and go out. Otherwise, you won't be able to make it in time for the gathering." Yunchujio wanted to ask Goei Batsao about her background, but when she saw that it was almost midnight, she had no choice but to put the stone into her storage ring and crush the jade token. Goei Batsao in her Dantian let out a sigh of relief. The baby's background was so extraordinary, it would never tell this stinky girl. Anyway, it was staying in her Dantian. Even if she wanted to teach it a lesson, there was nothing she could do. It was just that arrogant and fearless. What could that stinky girl do to it? Yunchujio more or less guessed Goei Bakao's thoughts. The corners of her mouth curled into a sneer. She couldn't do anything to it? Don't forget, that stone was in her storage ring. I'll deal with it when I have time. A white light flashed in front of Yunchujio's eyes. When she regained her sight, she was already outside the valley. At this moment, there was a sea of people outside the valley. They were all examinees who had participated in the assessment. Yunchujio was puzzled. She hadn't seen so many people in the valley before. Where did they come from? In fact, she did not know that the chaotic world valley had been divided into several areas. The enchantment that she had entered was just one of the areas. While Yunchujio was in a daze, Ding Wenru and the other two ran over. "Qingqing, you're finally out. I was worried sick. Are you hurt?" Ding Wenru asked with concern. Yunchujio giggled. "I'm fine. I'm very well. It's just that I haven't found any opportunities. Let's go and see Superintendent Zhang." After seeing Superintendent Zhang comforted He Xinjiu. It was nothing more than opportunities that could be encountered but not sought. There would be opportunities in the future. As they spoke, the results of the examinees had already been announced. Those who passed the test were naturally very happy, while those who didn't pass the test had dejected expressions. Yunchujio saw the names of Han Binger and the others in the list of names that passed and heaved a sigh of relief. She saw that Bai Yuechen and the others' names were also on the list, and Bai Yuchen's name was at the top of the list. Even his sidekick, Fan Qi, was ranked in the top 10. Yunchujio didn't care about this. After all, who ranked first had nothing to do with her. What she cared about now was how to find more stones, and then let that damned Goei Batsao leave her Dantian. Then she could have sex with that pretty boy. Chapter 55-53 Misty Lake. The efficiency of the 10 Directions Academy was very high. 2 hours later, Superintendent Kai summoned the flying spiritual device and led the examinees who had passed the assessment to the 10 Directions Academy. There were also a few lecturers who were responsible for sending the eliminated examinees to the nearby cities. Superintendent Zhang brought Yunchujio and the other 3 on the flying spiritual device and sent them to the cabin where the examinees were. As soon as Yunchujio entered the cabin, Han Binger saw her. She quickly waved her hand. "Sister Qingqing, over here." Yunchujio smiled and brought Ding Wenru and the other 2 to sit next to Han Binger. Yunchujio first congratulated Han Binger for passing the exam, then introduced Ding Wenru and the other 2 to her. Although Han Binger was surprised that Ding Wenru and the other 2's cultivation levels were so low, she didn't show it on her face. She politely greeted them. The people around did not have Han Binger's self-restraint. They looked at Yun Chujio and the other three with eyes full of sizing up and disdain. Could it be that these four good-for-nothings were also examinees? Moreover, they had passed the second round of assessment? Some examinees who had once met in the chaotic world valley said, "They are audit students. They only have the qualifications to spend money to buy them. They probably took our flying spirit tool along the way." Hearing this, the crowd looked at Yun Chujio and the other three with even more disdain. So they were audit students. In their hearts, audit students were synonymous with being stupid and having a lot of money. They were a bunch of useless snacks that relied on their father. The official students of the 10 Directions Academy and audit students were like clouds and mud. After the official students graduated from the 10 Directions Academy, all the major forces would compete to recruit them. However, audit students were annoying and sought after. They were just slightly better than the average person. Ding Wenru and the other two blushed and lowered their heads. It was obvious that they found it hard to accept the contempt of these people. However, Yun Chujio was still chatting with Han Binger with a smile, as if she did not see the eyes of those people at all. Seeing this, Han Binger was even more certain that Yun Chujio's background must be very strong. Otherwise, where would she get the confidence? Thus, their words became even more intimate. The chaotic world valley was not too far from the 10 Directions Academy. A day later, the flying spirit tool landed on the ground. Yun Chujio found that they were actually on the shore of a lake. The surface of the lake rippled and was very wide. However, the distance was covered by a thin layer of fog, obstructing people's vision. She recalled the situation that Superintendent Zhang had introduced and thought, this should be the Misty Lake. The 10 Directions Academy was different. It was neither in the city nor in the mountains. Instead, it was on the 10 islands of the Misty Lake. It was said that this was the origin of the name of the 10 Directions Academy. The 10 islands were all equipped with formations. They could be formed individually or together. With the surrounding lake water, even if they encountered a strong enemy, they could protect themselves. Of course, only blind people would attack the 10 Directions Academy because that was no different from sending themselves to their deaths. Just as Yun Chujio was in a daze, a large ship sailed over from afar. The examinees were excited. It's the ship of the 10 Directions Academy. It must be here to pick us up. I heard that the 10 Directions Academy is like a fairyland. Even if we can't pass the test in the end, it would be a blessing for us to broaden our horizons. Look at what you're saying. Well, definitely pass the exam. Then we'll be able to live and study in the 10 Directions Waterside Pavilion. You're right. We'll definitely be able to enter the 10 Directions Academy. Chapter 55-54. Board the ship. Amidst the excited discussions of the crowd, the ship gradually approached. However, because the water level on the shore was too shallow, the ship stopped several hundred feet away from the shore. Yun Chujio secretly thought to herself, could it be that she would have to swim over several hundred feet? Soon she realized that she was thinking too much. She did not know how the people on the ship operated, but a pontoon actually appeared on the shore and at the bow of the ship. A person who looked like a lecturer at the bow of the ship cupped his hands at Superintendent Kai and Superintendent Zhang. Then, Superintendent Kai led everyone onto the ship. After Yun Chujio boarded the ship, she could not help but feel envious. Not only was the ship big, but it was also decorated extremely luxuriously. It was divided into 3 floors. Other than the magnificent hall, there were also a number of exquisite individual rooms. However, these examinees, as well as Yun Chujio and the other 3, were naturally not qualified to enter those individual rooms. They were all arranged in the hall on the first level. The examinees were extremely excited. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and chatted and laughed. Yun Chujio asked Han Binger curiously, "Sister Han, how long will it take for us to reach the Academy of 10 Directions? Will we arrive soon?" Han Binger smiled and said, "It won't be that soon. Although the Misty Lake is a lake, it is actually very big. I think we will reach it tomorrow morning at the earliest." Yun Chujio did not expect that it would take so long, but it did not matter. They would arrive after a nap. While the sky was still dark, Yun Chujio brought Ding Wenru and the other 2 to the deck to enjoy the scenery. The water surface of the misty lake was very calm. There were only slight waves. Occasionally, there were some water birds skimming over the surface of the water. It was quiet and beautiful, making people involuntarily calm down. It was not until the sky darkened that Yun Chujio and the other three returned to the hall on the first floor. After a simple dinner, everyone fell asleep. Yun Chujio also closed her eyes. While she was sleeping soundly, Yun Chujio felt a slight pain in her dantian. Yun Chujio opened her eyes a little. She saw that although Han Binger and the others had their eyes closed, their faces were full of confusion. Her heart moved. Had she fallen into an illusion? Could it be that the 10 Directions Academy had directly set up the third round of assessment on the ship? It was really treacherous. These examinees were extremely relaxed now. They did not think of the assessment at all. Instead, they could catch them off guard. Then the question came. What should she do? This fellow closed H. Then she used her spiritual sense to stop the black bead from reminding her again. She wanted to see what kind of assessment these people were taking. She let her spiritual sense go blank and fell into a half-asleep state. The scene before her eyes suddenly changed. They were still in the living room on the first floor. Everyone looked at the people of the CI department standing in front of them, puzzled. Why did the CI department wake them up in the middle of the night with such a heavy expression on their faces? Even with a hint of grief? What had happened? In the midst of everyone's confusion, Director Kai said with great difficulty, "Examinees, I have just received news that the 10-sided waterside pavilion where the 10-sided academy is located has sunk to the bottom of the water for some unknown reason." Everyone immediately exploded. What? The 10-sided waterside pavilion sank to the bottom of the water? Then wouldn't the 10-sided academy's 10,000-year-old foundation be completely destroyed? Didn't the 10-sided waterside pavilion have the support of a formation? How could it still sink to the bottom of the water? Overwatch Council Kai raised his voice and continued to say, "This isn't the worst thing. After all, the 10-sided waterside pavilion has been destroyed. We can just choose a new site and rebuild it. What's even worse is that the Misty Lake is connected to the demon-suppressing sea. Those sea beasts have somehow surged into the Misty Lake and are currently besieging the surviving teachers and students of the 10-sided academy." Chapter 55. Courage was commendable. When everyone heard Director Kai's words, they became even more flustered. What? The sea beasts of the demon-suppressing sea were besieging the people of the 10 Directions Academy? Was there still a way to survive? How could they have provoked the sea beasts of the demon-suppressing sea? At this time, everyone realized that the cabin was shaking violently. The Misty Lake had always been calm. It was impossible for such a big storm to occur. It seemed that something had really happened. Director Kai sighed. "We have to go back and help. Although it may not be of much use, we cannot just stand by and watch. You are not students of the 10 Directions Academy yet, so I have no right to force you to go back with me to help. If you want to leave, I will prepare another boat to send you out of here. There is no time to lose. Those who want to leave, stand on the left. Those who want to follow me to the 10-sided waterside pavilion, stand on the right." Everyone had different expressions. Someone immediately stood on the left. Although the 10-sided academy was good, there was no need for them to lose their lives. At most, they could just go and apply for the Divine Enlightenment Academy. Once someone took the lead, many people walked to the left. Bai Yuchen's expression was gloomy as he stood on the spot. Fan Chi said in a low voice, "Brother Bai, let's go too. There's no need for us to throw our lives away. The 10 Directions Academy is really stupid. They built the academy in a place that wasn't good, yet they built it on an island. They're really stupid." Bai Yuechen glared at him and said, "Let's see." As a member of the Bai family, he naturally knew some things that others did not know. The master of the Bai family had once told him that the array formation of the 10 Directions Academy was a formation passed down from the ancient times and was extremely sturdy. How could it sink all of a sudden? There might be a problem. Moreover, even if he really wanted to leave, it was not too late. It was not too late to take a look at the situation first. Han Binger was also a little conflicted. Some of her good friends had already stood to the left, but she was still a little hesitant. Ding Wenru and the other two had always followed Yun Chujia's lead. Seeing that she did not move, they also did not move. In less than half an hour, nearly half of the people had already walked to the left. Most of the remaining people were hesitant, but there was actually no one on the right. At this time, a slender figure stood firmly on the right. Let alone being surrounded by sea beasts, even if the sky falls and the earth cracks, I, Yan Qingqing, will defend the 10 Directions Academy to the death. Superintendent Zhang sighed in his heart. Did you see that? He had said that this little girl was the kindest, born with a feeling of compassion for the world. As expected, even if she had not officially become an audit student of the 10 Directions Academy, it did not hinder her loyalty to the 10 Directions Academy. Superintendent Ai also had a new opinion of He Xinjiu. Previously, when he heard what Superintendent Zhang had said, he had thought it was a little exaggerated. Now, he saw that this Yan Qingqing was indeed a kind and good girl. Not only was she kind, but she was also brave. Although her cultivation was a little low, she was still a potential talent. Ding Wenru and the other two had always followed Yun Chujia's lead. When they saw her stand on the right side, they also stood behind Yun Chujio. Han Binger was still hesitant at first, but now she gritted her teeth and stood on the right side. Her thoughts were very simple. It was obvious that this Yan Qingqing had a background. It was not wrong for her to follow her. Following that, more and more people stood to the right. Some were smart people who felt that something was amiss. Some were indeed full of passion to save people, while others were unconvinced. Could it be that they were not as courageous as a useless bystander? Chapter 55-56 was pure in nature. Bai Yuechen did not miss the slight change in the expressions of Superintendent Kai and Superintendent Zhang. He then thought of the deep foundation of the Academy of 10 Directions and immediately stood on the right side of the line. Fan Qi and the others saw the situation. Although they thought that Bai Yuchen's brain was damaged, they could only follow him. After everyone made their choice, the heavy expression on the face of Superintendent Kai immediately disappeared. He said lightly, "The examinees on the right side will enter the next round of assessment. The examinees on the left side will be eliminated." Everyone was stunned at first, but then they realized that it was fake. At this moment, everyone opened their eyes one after another, feeling a little absent-minded. The violent turbulence that they had felt before no longer existed. Was what happened before an illusion? Moreover, their minds were a little muddled and they could not think too much. Could it be that it was also because of the illusion? At this time, there were already lecturers who had started to call out names. The examinees who had chosen to stand on the left side immediately turned pale. They did not even have the courage to plead. They were the ones who had given up on the 10 Directions Academy first. Who else could they rely on? They could not even compare to the 4 listening students. How could they have the face to plead for mercy? After the people who had been eliminated were taken away, the CAI department did not say anything and directly left. The rest of the people had different expressions. Some had understood, some were scared, but most were happy. No matter what, they had passed the 3rd round of the assessment. Han Binger looked at Yun Chujio with a kind gaze. This Yan Qingqing was really her lucky star. If it wasn't for her, she might have stood on the left. Han Binger was about to say something when she saw Yun Chujio yawn. She actually closed her eyes and fell asleep. Han Binger shook her head speechlessly. This Yan Qingqing was really big-hearted. However, it was also true. Whether she passed or not had nothing to do with her. After all, she was only an audit student. At this moment, Superintendent Kai and Superintendent Zhang were chatting in their separate rooms. "Brother Kai, how is it? Am I right? That little girl has a pure heart. Although she is only an audit student, she was the first to stand on the right side," Superintendent Zhang said with pride. Superintendent Kai nodded. "This little girl is indeed not bad. If it wasn't for her taking the lead, there would probably be many people who hesitated and wouldn't stand on the right side. It's just a pity that her cultivation is really a bit lacking. Unless there is a great opportunity, otherwise she can only fade into obscurity in the end." Superintendent Zhang sighed. "What you said makes sense. Forget it. What happens in the future will all depend on her luck. Right, the purpose of this third round of assessment is to see the temperament of those examinees, right? However, I see that many of them have already seen through our little tricks. Is there any meaning in this assessment? Superintendent Kai smiled. I don't know about the rest, but I know that the people who are eliminated are either cunning or stupid. Superintendent Zhang was stunned at first, then he laughed out loud. That makes sense. This test is like a big wave sweeping through the sand. It's good that it can play a role in the selection. As for the people who are left behind, there's nothing we can do about it. Superintendent Kai suddenly frowned. Do you think that little girl has already seen through our little trick? Is that why she put on such a show? Superintendent Zhang shook his head like a rattledrum. Impossible. That little girl's nature is pure and kind. It's completely from the bottom of her heart. Besides, her cultivation is so low that no one else has noticed. How could she have noticed? Chapter 55-57 Registration. Seeing that his old friend was so confident, the director of the Kai department stopped thinking about getting the shadow stone from the hall immediately. Yun Chujio was pleasantly surprised by the noise. She vaguely heard words like, "The 10-sided waterside pavilion is ahead. It's so beautiful." Seeing that she had woken up, Han Binger smiled and said, "We are about to reach the 10-sided waterside pavilion where the 10-sided academy is located. Let's go out and take a look." Yun Chujio agreed readily. She brought Ding Wenru and the other two to follow Han Binger to the deck. The mist that had previously blocked everyone's sight had disappeared. They could vaguely see 10 islands in the distance. The 10 islands were not too far away. The island in the middle was the largest. The other 9 islands were scattered around like stars holding the moon. Amidst the lush trees, one could vaguely see the pavilions on the island. Yun Chujio was also a little excited. Although she was really not interested in the life of the academy, the 10 Directions Academy seemed to be good, and it was also good to go in and have some fun. An hour later, the big ship docked at the dock of an island, and everyone got off the ship. Yun Chujio saw a huge stone erected on the dock. On it were 4 words, Feng Shui Pavilion. There were many guards around the dock. They checked the identity documents of Superintendent Zhang and Superintendent Kai before they let them pass. There were several stone roads leading to different directions on the dock. Superintendent Kai had to take the examinees to the next assessment, so they separated from Superintendent Zhang. Superintendent Zhang smiled and said to Yun Chujio and the others, "Let's go. It'll take you to go through the registration procedures for the auditing students." Yun Chujio and the other 3 nodded their heads in thanks and then followed Superintendent Zhang inside. Yun Chujio was surprised to find that this Feng Shui Pavilion was actually very prosperous. It was similar to a small city. There were restaurants and shops. Superintendent Zhang seemed to see her curiosity and explained, "There are many guards stationed at the Feng Shui Pavilion. They are usually responsible for patrolling the surrounding waters. In addition, if there are outsiders visiting, they will usually be arranged to be at the Feng Shui Pavilion. Some of the assessment and registration matters will be carried out here." Yun Chujio suddenly realized that this was not a bad idea. It could not only avoid affecting the other students, but it was also more convenient. When they reached the registration area, Superintendent Zhang said to the 4 of them, "You guys wait here first. They'll go in and say hello." Yun Chujio knew that Superintendent Zhang was going in first to make connections. Ding Wenru and the other 2 were fine, but she was specially recruited to waive the donation fee, so she definitely had to say hello first. After Superintendent Zhang went in, Ding Wenru immediately said excitedly, "Qingqing, I still feel like I'm dreaming. Are we really going to become audit students of the 10 Directions Academy?" Yun Chujio smiled and nodded. Of course it's true. Gu Lieni and Qin Linglong were also very excited. For a moment, they were chattering non-stop. Yun Chujio only occasionally responded with a few words. At this moment, a disdainful voice came from the side. "Where did this country bumpkin come from? Do you think that you can become an auditing student just because you handed in 3 melons and 2 dates?" That's right. It's one thing for him to be dressed shabbily, but his cultivation is still so low. How dare he dream of entering the 10 Directions Academy? Could it be that he hasn't woken up yet? The audit students of the 10 Directions Academy not only need to be rich, but also have a background. Where did these 4 country bumpkins get the courage to dream here? It was a group of arrogant women who spoke. Their eyes were almost on the top of their heads. It seemed that they were also here to register as audit students. Chapter 55-58 was exposed. Ding Wenru and the other 2 blushed. They wanted to refute but were afraid of offending others. After all, they had no one to rely on right now, so it was better for them not to cause trouble. Yun Chujio did not say anything either. It was not that she was afraid of causing trouble, but she was lazy. After torturing scum for a long time, she lost interest. She was not in the mood to teach them a lesson since they were a bunch of idiots with small breasts and no brains. Seeing that Yun Chujio and the other 3 did not say anything, the women laughed even more brazenly. It meant that they could not be accepted by Yun Yun at all. At this moment, Superintendent Zhang came out and said to the 4, "Go and pay the money. Then listen to the arrangements of the lecturers inside. I still have something to do. If there is anything, contact me again." After Superintendent Zhang finished speaking, he left in a hurry. Yun Chujio glanced at the few women with a half-smile. Then she brought Ding Wenru and the other 2 to go through the procedures. The faces of the few women alternated between green and white. Although Yun Chujio did not say anything, her half-smile was like a hard slap on their faces. One of the women said hatefully, "That person was wearing the clothes of the superintendent. I didn't expect those 4 country bumpkins to have such abilities." So what if they were accepted? They won't have a strong background. When the time comes, we can deal with them however we want. That's right. The management of the auditing students is not as strict as the formal students. Just find an opportunity to make them suffer a little. Let's go and handle the procedures. Yun Chujio did not know what these people were planning. Moreover, even if she knew, this person would not be afraid. On the contrary, she would find it interesting. After the formalities were completed, Yun Chujio and the other 3 were arranged to stay in a dormitory in the backyard. After the registration was completed, they were then sent to the waterside pavilion in the lower courtyard. In order to avoid complications, Yun Chujio and the other 3 did not leave the courtyard. They cultivated conscientiously. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. The assessment matters in charge of Supervisor Kai had finally come to an end. On a whim, he took out the shadow stone on the large ship to take a look. However, his gaze quickly shrank. This was because he clearly saw that when the examination had just begun, Yen Qingcheng's eyes had opened a slit and then closed again. At first, he thought that he had seen wrongly, but after looking at it a few times, he finally confirmed that the little girl had clearly seen through the illusion, but she had pretended to be trapped in the illusion. So, her impassioned words in the illusion were all for them to see? Superintendent Sei's expression immediately became ugly. He had thought that this Yen Qingcheng had a pure and kind heart, but it turned out that she was a cunning person. He thought of the things Superintendent Zhang had told him, and he began to doubt the authenticity of those things. He immediately took the shadow stone and found Superintendent Zhang. With a cold smile, he said, "This is the kind and good girl you said." After looking at the shadow stone, Superintendent Zhang was momentarily stunned. In his heart, Yun Chujio's image of a kind person was as solid as a rock. He found it hard to believe that Yun Chujio's kindness was just an act. He opened his mouth and said, "Perhaps she only woke up for a short while and then fell into an illusion again." Superintendent Kai laughed coldly. Look at the other people's expressions. Sometimes they are flustered and sometimes they are surprised. Look at her expression again. She is as indifferent as ever. Clearly, she has not completely fallen into an illusion. Superintendent Zhang was rendered speechless. After a long while, he mumbled, "She is just a little girl. She might be a little flustered when she is suddenly faced with something like a test." Superintendent Zhang could not continue. Yun Chujio's indifferent appearance on the shadow stone did not seem to have anything to do with fluster. Chapter 55-59 The waterside pavilion of the lower courtyard. Superintendent Tsai's expression became even colder. What do you plan to do? I know a little about her. Her temperament is definitely very different from what you said. It doesn't matter if she's smart, but PM worried that she was also the one who acted out what happened at the Eternal River. If that's the case, then her thoughts are too scary. She has been scheming to enter our 10 Directions Academy. Perhaps she has other motives. In order to prevent the worst from happening, it's better not to accept her. Superintendent Zhang said with some disapproval. Even if she did it on purpose this time, what happened on the ancient river was definitely not fake. It was a real thunder. Moreover, I have already helped her with the enrollment procedures for the auditing student. She can't go back on her words now, right? Moreover, she is an auditing student and a little girl at the 9th level of the Spirit Extinguisher realm. What motive could she have? Alright, since you insist, then I won't say anything. It's best if she keeps to herself. If she really wants something else, then don't be soft-hearted, Superintendent Kai said helplessly. He knew his old friend too well. He was reckless and didn't have many twists and turns in his heart. Otherwise, based on his strength, he wouldn't have been a superintendent all this time. Superintendent Zhang felt that Superintendent Kai was exaggerating. Furthermore, He Xingjia's kindness was indestructible in his heart, so he gave a few perfunctory words and did not take this matter to heart. He did not take it to heart, but Superintendent Kai felt that he could not drag his old friend down because of a little girl, so he made some arrangements in private. He Xingjio did not know that her kindness was in danger. She had been stabilizing her state these days. On this day, the registration for the auditing students was cut off. A person who called himself Lecturer Hua led them to the waterside pavilion in the lower courtyard by boat. Yun Chujio originally thought that there were not many auditing students in the Academy of 10 Directions. However, she realized that her estimation was wrong. There seemed to be at least 2,000 people. This guy counted with his fingers. TSK, just the donation of the Academy of 10 Directions was a huge sum of money. It seemed that no matter what, the education industry was the best to make money. This guy suddenly had an idea. If there was a chance, she would also set up a few academies. The money would definitely be rolling in. On the boat, Yun Chujio and the other 3 naturally received a lot of disdainful and inquisitive gazes. Although Ding Wenru and the other 2 were still a little uncomfortable, they were much better than before. It was probably because they were used to it. As for He Xingjio, she had never cared about such things. At this moment, she was wondering if there were any fish in the lake and how it tasted. The distance between the Windfall Pavilion and the Waterside Pavilion of the lower courtyard was not too far. In less than an hour, they arrived at the Waterside Pavilion of the lower courtyard. There were still many guards guarding the dock. After walking for about 15 minutes, they saw the lower courtyard of the 10 Directions Academy under the shade of the green trees. Yun Chujio originally thought that the lower house was prepared for them, but she did not expect to see Han Binger and the others as soon as she entered the lower house. Could it be that she had thought wrongly? All the new students were in the lower house, or was there another rule? Just as she was puzzled, Instructor Hua said, "Stand behind the corresponding signboard according to your spiritual roots. After that, the older students will naturally lead you to go through the procedures for the new students." Yun Chujio thought of the fire spiritual roots registered on her identity document and could only look at the sign for the mutated spiritual roots. She followed Ding Wenru and the other 2 to stand behind the sign for the fire element. Yun Chujio saw that the official students who were not far from them were also queuing according to their department. She guessed that the lower house of the 10 Directions Academy was teaching according to different spiritual roots. Chapter 55-60 Missed the Gigolo. Fellow juniors, I am Tao Quan. I am your senior. I will lead you to go through the relevant procedures. Yun Chujio looked towards the source of the voice. The person who spoke was a young man. He had handsome features and a perfect smile on his face. Upon closer inspection, there was a faint hint of flirtation. Many women revealed a hint of shyness on their faces. Even Ding Wenru's face turned red. This senior Tao smile was really a little flirtatious. There were a few older students standing beside Tao Quan. Tao Quan introduced them one by one, then led the group to the fire department. After entering the fire department, Yun Chujio found that the students she met were wearing two kinds of clothes. It was probably to distinguish between formal students and audit students. Tao Quan led the group to go through the corresponding procedures for the new students. It was nothing more than distributing some materials, allocating dormitories, and arranging courses. Yun Chujio really wanted to have a separate dormitory, but there were too many people in the lower academy, so they could only have one room for 4 people. She had to share a dormitory with Ding Wenru and the others. When the 4 of them arrived at the dormitory, Ding Wenru said excitedly, "Ching Ching, this is great. I thought I would have to separate from you after entering the academy. I didn't expect that not only do we belong to the same department, but we are also in the same dormitory. This is great." Ding Wenru felt that it was really wise for the lower academy to divide the departments according to their spiritual roots. If they were to divide the departments according to other criteria, wouldn't she be unable to rely on others? Gu Lieni and Qin Linglong were also very happy. They felt that with Yun Chujio by their side, they would have a backbone. Hei Xinjiao gave a few perfunctory sentences. This fellow was a little worried. She was a thunder-type spiritual root, but now she was forced to choose the fire type. She was afraid that the days in the future would be difficult. However, if she changed her element now, her identity would be exposed. Moreover, her previous good-natured character would probably collapse. Forget it, let's wait and see. Ching Ching, let's change our clothes and go out for a walk. Let's familiarize ourselves with the environment first, Gu Lieni said excitedly. Yun Chujio also wanted to go for a walk. She immediately nodded and agreed. The 4 of them left the dormitory together. Just as they reached the entrance of the courtyard, they heard someone grumble, "How unlucky, to be neighbors with the 4 of Vu trash." Yun Chujio looked at the person who spoke and the 3 people standing beside her. She thought to herself, enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Aren't these the 4 idiots who don't have big boobs and brains? Yun Chujio ignored them and pretended not to hear anything. Ding Wenru and the other 2 saw that Yun Chujio didn't respond, so they also walked over without looking away. The person saw that Yun Chujio and the others didn't say anything and thought that they were afraid. He curled his lips and said, "At least you know what's good for you. If you dare to provoke us, it'll make you suffer." After walking for a distance, Ding Wenru said hatefully, "Bah! What the hell? No matter how powerful you are, you're still an audit student like us. What's there to be proud of?" Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips and didn't say anything. Such a childish piece of trash was no longer of interest to her. Sigh, she was starting to miss the gigolo. After arriving at the Divine Inspiration continent, the voice transmission talismans she had brought earlier could no longer be used. Therefore, she had no way to contact D. Biming's counterpart, D. Biming, and he had no way to contact her. It was really a mistake. She didn't know how long it would be before she could meet her gigolo. The days without gigolo were especially difficult. Ching Ching, the canteen is in front. Let's go in and take a look, Ding Wenru said excitedly. Hei Xinjiao, who had a disappointed look just a moment ago, immediately brought Ding Wenru and the other 2 to the canteen. It was not difficult. Cough, cough, it didn't exist. Chapter 5561. The canteen. Heard Yun Chujio entered the canteen and saw a dazzling array of delicacies. She immediately forgot about the little miss she had just now. Although these delicacies cost spirit stones to buy, Hei Xinjiao was not short of money. She bought a huge pile of them in one go, which attracted the odd job workers and other students to cast sidelong glances at her. The 4 of them found an empty table and started to eat. Hei Xinjiao was full of smiles. No wonder everyone wanted to enter the 10 Directions Academy. The canteen was worth it, not to mention others. While the 4 of them were eating enthusiastically, someone quarreled over a fish. I ordered this braised snow sponge fish first. Why didn't you sell it to him? A short fat man said indignantly. He was about to pay the money, but the handyman sold the fish to someone later. It was too much. The handyman in the canteen said indifferently, because he is an official student, and you are an auditing student. The short and fat man's face suddenly stiffened. What do you mean? The handyman didn't say anything. He hit the hook nose of the fish and said arrogantly, "What do you mean?" It's a literal meaning. As everyone knows, in the 10 Directions Academy, whether it's resources or other things, official students have priority over the listening students. This is the rule of the 10 Directions Academy. If you are not convinced, you can get out of the 10 Directions Academy. The short and fat man's expression suddenly became ugly. He wanted to say something, but one of his companions dragged him away. The hooked nose twitched his lips and returned to his seat with a tray. The people sitting at the same table with him were all dressed in formal academy uniforms. They started mocking him. "In Liang, why are you wasting your breath with that trash? If he dares to provoke you, just let him learn his lesson." That's right. Don't those listening students only have a little money in their families? In the outside world, we might still be afraid of their family's power, but in the 10 Directions Academy, they have to tuck their tails between their legs and behave themselves. That's right. Even if those students have a powerful family, based on their talent, they will definitely not be favored at home. What else can they do? There were a few other students sitting around them. Although they looked very dissatisfied, no one dared to say anything. Yun Chujio frowned slightly. It seemed that in the 10 Directions Academy, the status of the official students and the students were worlds apart. Since no one spoke up, the hawk-nosed table quickly began to talk about other things. "Have you heard that one of the new students of this batch has directly entered the upper?" "Of course I've heard about it. Such explosive news has long spread throughout the entire 10 Directions Academy. That freshman is extremely talented. It is said that he has a mutated ice spirit root. In the 5 rounds of assessment, he is always at the top of the list. In each round, his results far surpass that of the second place. He is simply a heaven-gifted genius. TSK, not only is he gifted, but he also has the looks of a dragon and a phoenix. I reckon that many beautiful juniors will take the initiative to approach him." Hearing their conversation, Yun Chujio's chopsticks paused. Mutated ice spirit root? It had the same spirit root as the gigolo? However, that person was definitely not a gigolo. Based on the cultivation level of the gigolo, there was no need for him to come here. Moreover, if the Divine Devil Hall knew that the gigolo was in the 10 Directions Academy, they would not be so quiet. Yun Chujio thought of debiming and could not help but feel a little down. Hence, she turned her anger into appetite and continued to eat. Chapter 5562 Law Teaching Hall. After eating, Yun Chujio and the other 3 walked around the lower house. However, because the lower house occupied a large area, they only walked around a part of it. The next morning, the 4 of them had breakfast and went to the Fire Element Law Teaching Hall. The Fire Element Law Teaching Hall was very spacious and could accommodate up to 1,000 people. The Law Teaching Hall was divided into 3 areas. At the front was the lecturer's podium, followed by the official meditation venue, and at the back was the listening students' meditation venue. Yun Chujio sighed in her heart. The treatment of the official students and the listening students was really different. There were many older students in the teaching hall who were responsible for maintaining order, and Tao Quan was among them. Yun Chujio took a closer look and found that the clothes of Tao Quan and the others were slightly different from her own. There was a word "law" embroidered on their sleeves. It was estimated that these people were like the modern student union. They helped the academy maintain order or did some chores. However, Tao Quan and the others were only responsible for listening to the students. There were other senior students on the official side to maintain order. When Yun Chujio was looking around, she felt a few hostile gazes. Among them, there were a few neighbors who did not have big boobs or good brains. The other one was Fan Chi, Bai Yuchen's lackey. Fan Chi looked at Yun Chujio with disdain and hatred. He hadn't forgotten what had happened at Rocky Mountain. If it weren't for this stupid girl shouting and taking the lead to run forward, he might have been able to force Han Binger into submission and find an opportunity to teach her a lesson. Yun Chujio pretended not to see Fan Kai's gaze. She wasn't in the mood to abuse him. Of course, if someone wasn't afraid of death and insisted on moving forward, she would fulfill his wish. The students came in one after another. Due to the older students maintaining order, the teaching hall was relatively quiet. When a lecturer surnamed Ouyang came in, the huge teaching hall suddenly became silent. Lecturer Ouyang introduced himself first and then said, "I respect the rules the most. If any student does not abide by the rules, I will not let them off easily. Since you have entered the 10 Directions Academy, you are naturally the best among your peers. I hope you can cultivate steadily and strive to enter the middle and even the upper house. In addition, I have a few words for the listening students. All of you listen carefully. You can ignore the lecture and even go to sleep, but if I find out that anyone has broken the classroom order, I will not be lenient. Also, even if you are a bystander, the 50 people who are ranked at the back of the exam will be eliminated. If you are not afraid of losing face in your family, you can go ahead and waste your time." Yun Chujio felt that the way Lecturer Ouyang looked at the bystanders was like looking at trash. This fellow was more or less unhappy in his heart. He was a teacher, so he had to preach and receive knowledge to resolve doubts. It was really displeasing that he treated the students so differently. There were many students who had the same thoughts as her, but no one dared to say anything. After all, they had spent a huge donation fee to become the 10 Directions Academy students. If they got into trouble and were expelled, their families would not forgive them. Lecturer Ouyang paused for a moment and then said, "I will first take a random check of your standards, and then proceed with the lecture." Lecturer Ouyang opened the jade slip with the name of the student and glanced at it. "Fan Chi, come to the front." Fan Chi did not expect Lecturer Ouyang to spot him. He stood up in a panic and walked to the podium. Chapter 5563 must be an illusion. Lecturer Ouyang's attitude towards Fan Chi was not bad. "Release your spiritual beast and let me see your level." Fan Chi hurriedly summoned his spiritual beast. It was a majestic spiritual fire lion. If one looked closely, one could see that the left front claw of the fire lion had a faint sign of materializing. Lecturer Ouyang nodded. "It's not bad. If you cultivate diligently, this toe will materialize within 3 months." Fan Chi immediately nodded with some trepidation, indicating that he would definitely cultivate diligently. Lecturer Ouyang had him go down and check on a few more people. They were all official students, so he was basically satisfied. He frowned and decided to check on one of the spectating students. He glanced at the jade slip and said, "Yen Qingqing." Hey Xinjiu, who was wandering in her mind, she must be hallucinating. There were so many people here. How could she be so unlucky to pick her name? It must be an illusion. Ding Wenru tugged at Yun Chujia's sleeve and complained in her heart. Did she forget her new name? Why isn't she going up? Yun Chujio had no choice but to bite the bullet and stand up. Then she walked to the podium. This fellow's heart was filled with misery. Release the spiritual beast. She could only release the Goei Batsao, all right? She didn't know where the damned Goei Batsao had taken the Dehua. Otherwise, she could have used Dehua to deal with it. Goei Batsao shook its leaves. What's wrong with it? Can't it see people? It was still the same saying. Once the Goei Batsao appeared, who would contend with it? Lecturer Ouyang looked at Yun Chujio with a displeased gaze. Level 9 of Spirit Extinguisher? Wasn't this too low? Even the auditing students were at least at level 3 of Divine Revelation. No matter how bad it was, it should not be lower than level 2 of Divine Revelation. How did this Yen Qingqing get in? Could it be that her background was very strong? Yen? There was no big force in the Divine Enlightenment continent with the surname of Yen? Lecturer Ouyang saw that Yun Chujio did not make any move and said with an ugly expression, "What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and release your spirit beast." Ouyang, Lecturer Ouyang, I've long heard of your name. PM's so excited to see you alive today. Before Hei Xinjiu could finish her sentence, she rolled her eyes and fainted. Lecturer Ouyang. What did he mean by seeing her alive? However, was his fame already so great? How could he make this auditing student so excited that she fainted? Due to some subtle psychology, Teacher Ouyang did not get angry and asked someone to carry Yun Chujio off the stage. Yun Chujio woke up as soon as she was carried off the stage. This guy gave himself a thumbs up. Fortunately, she was smart. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for her. If she released the Goei Batsao, her identity would be exposed. After all, only her spiritual beast was a Goei Batsao. Moreover, even if she was not afraid of exposing her identity, the Goei Batsao could not be solidified because this guy was not a spiritual beast at all. This fellow had a premonition that her days in the 10 Directions Academy would not be easy. Yun Chujio weakly returned to her seat and then continued to listen to the lecture with an excited look. Lecturer Oyang saw Yun Chujio's excited look and swallowed the scolding that was on the tip of his tongue. Forget it, she was just an audit student. No matter how she managed to sneak in, she would definitely pack up and leave after the big exam. He did not need to waste his energy on such a trash. Chapter 55-64, Who was the one with the worse aptitude? Lecturer Oyang was talking non-stop on the stage, explaining the cultivation method of materializing spiritual beasts. Hei Xinjia's heart was filled with sorrow. Even if she had mastered these methods, it would be useless. Her Dehua had been missing for a long time. She missed the gigolo, she missed Dehua. Finally, the class was over. After Lecturer Oyang left, Yun Chujio was about to get up when she heard Tao Quan and the others shout, "Let the official students go first." After Tao Quan said that, he even smiled at the official students' enforcers. The official students stood up and walked past the students with their heads held high. Occasionally, one could even hear a disdainful snort. After all, the students were new to the school. Some of them looked a little angry, but they did not dare to say anything. After the official students left, Tao Quan let the students leave. On the way, Yun Chujio heard some of the students say indignantly, "This is too different. Isn't it just that our cultivation level is a little lower than the official students? Is there a need to bully people like this?" Another person said helplessly, "The law of the jungle has always been in this world. Don't look at how we are only 2 or 3 levels lower than the official students. But as time goes by, the difference in talent will be revealed. In the end, there will be a difference of cloud and mud." Hearing this person's words, the face of the person who spoke at the beginning became dispirited. He muttered, "Is talent really that important? Of course it's important. Otherwise, why would some new students be able to directly enter the middle or even the upper house? Forget it, don't be too discouraged. Although we can't compare to those official students, we're still much stronger than the others. Moreover, we have our family backing us, so we can't compare to the others." The other person comforted her. Ding Wenru and the other two were already troubled. Hearing the conversation between these two, their expressions became more and more serious. After arriving at the dormitory, Ding Wenru said dejectedly, "Our cultivation is already inferior to the others, so there's no need to mention our background. We're definitely going to be eliminated during the big exam. It's really fucking depressing." Gu Liani echoed, "Yes, I don't have any confidence now. I only understood less than a third of what Lecturer Oyang said just now. I've never realized that I'm so stupid." Qin Linglong didn't say anything, but her expression was also very depressed. They were all proud daughters of heaven on the original continent, but now they couldn't even understand the lessons. The gap was too big. Yun Chujio glanced at them and said in a slightly cold tone, "So, you regret your ascension? You regret entering the 10 Directions Academy?" Ding Wenru was the best at reading people's expressions. Seeing Yun Chujio's unhappy expression, she was afraid that she would misunderstand that she was complaining about being brought to the 10 Directions Academy. She quickly explained, "I'm just afraid that I'll be eliminated during the exam. After all, our aptitude is too low." "Is that a pig's head on your neck? Aptitude is low? If your aptitude is low, then the other people from the 10 Directions Academy are a bunch of pigs." Yun Chujio sneered. Ding Wenru and the other two were dumbfounded. What did she mean? Why did she say that their aptitude was better than the other people from the 10 Directions Academy? The spiritual chi in the Divine Enlightenment continent is several times denser than that in your previous continent, and the cultivation methods here are much more advanced than the ones you used before. Even so, those people's cultivations are only slightly higher than yours. So, whose aptitude is worse? Chapter 5565. Who are you talking about? Ding Wenru and the other two were stunned. What the team leader said seemed to make sense. If that was the case, not only were they not trash, but they were also geniuses? Yun Chujio glanced at them. One cannot be arrogant, but one cannot belittle oneself. If you need someone else to give you confidence, then you will be looked down upon. Ding Wenru and the other two were shocked. Yes, when did their arrogance turn into self-pity? Perhaps it was the oppression and torture of the ascending heaven dock, or perhaps it was the high and mighty ones that made them lose their self-confidence. Yun Chujio saw that the three of them were in a daze and ignored them. She sat on her bed and took out the Goei Butsao. Cough, cough, she started to study the stone. Yun Chujio had taken it out and studied it before. She did not see anything strange about the stone, but it was slightly rounder than normal stones. Every time she took out the stone, she could feel the nervousness of the Goei Butsao. She was puzzled. What was the relationship between the Goei Butsao and the stone? Should she break open the stone to take a look? Just as Yun Chujio had this thought, the Goei Butsao in her dantian started to act cute crazily, afraid that Yun Chujio would really break the stone open. Yun Chujio was obviously trying to scare the Goei Butsao, or else it would be in the sky. It was not until the leaves of the Goei Butsao were whipped that Yun Chujio reluctantly put away the stone. Goei Butsao felt a little stifled. It seemed that it had dug a hole and buried itself. This wretched girl had grasped its vital point. Wouldn't it be tightly controlled by her in the future? What a mistake! At this time, Ding Wenru and the other two had already gathered together to discuss the content of Lecturer Ouyang's lecture. Yun Chujio knew that they had already resolved the knot in their hearts. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. She walked up to them and casually explained the focus of their argument. Ding Wenru's eyes lit up as she looked at Yun Chujio. Qingqing, you actually understood everything? You're too amazing. All right, did you really faint because you were too excited on the podium earlier? Hurry up and release your spiritual beast. Let us take a look. Yun Chujio. Release? What the hell? She didn't have a spiritual beast at all. She only had a piece of broken grass. However, she immediately thought of something. With the four of them living together, some secrets couldn't be hidden. It was better to let the Goei Butsao see the light, so that it wouldn't be inconvenient for her to do anything in the future. So, she said with a smile, okay, then I'll let my spiritual beast out for you to see, and then you'll understand why I fainted. Ding Wenru and the other two looked at each other. Why didn't they understand what she meant? Yun Chujio immediately summoned the Goei Butsao. In order to not attract the attention of others, the Goei Butsao was only 3 feet tall. It waved its flower spikes as a greeting. Ding Wenru and the other two were speechless. What the hell is this? Isn't this the Goei Butsao from the secular world? Or is it purple? Also, why does this Goei Butsao look like it owes me a debt? Goei Butsao was very proud when it saw the 3 people's dumbfounded expressions. These 3 people had definitely never seen such a peerless grass hero before, so they were too shocked. After a long while, Ding Wenru finally said, Qingchen's this thing is really your spiritual beast? Goei Butsao was immediately displeased. Who are you calling a thing? It's not a thing at all, okay? Chapter 5566 was purely a coincidence. Goei Butsao pointed at Ding Wenru with the grass leaf and shook it. It looked like a shrew cursing. Ding Wenru was so scared that she took a few steps back. Had this thing become a spirit? Yun Chujio glared at Goei Butsao and said, This is my spiritual beast. It's absolutely true. I don't know how I was unlucky enough to conjure such a thing. If others knew that my spiritual beast was so weird, they would definitely cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. That's why I pretended to faint during class. Goei Butsao heard Yun Chujio's tone full of disdain, and it felt a little sour in its heart. Although it wasn't a real spiritual beast, it had worked hard for this black-hearted girl. Why couldn't it exchange for a good word? The baby felt bitter in its heart, and it didn't say anything. Qin Linglong's face was full of surprise. Qingqing, Why is it purple? I heard that only spiritual beasts with heavenly lightning spiritual roots are purple. Could it be that you have heavenly lightning spiritual roots? Yun Chujio touched her nose. It's 80% right. Qin Linglong. What do you mean 80%? It must be. She suddenly thought of the scenes on the eternal river, and her face froze. No wonder she dared to use her body to attract the lightning. It turned out that she had a heavenly lightning spiritual root, but even a heavenly lightning spiritual root couldn't withstand so many heavenly lightning bolts. How did she keep her life back then? Ding Wenru also thought of this, and the way she looked at Yun Chujio became a little strange. Only Gu Liani was not a scheming person. She shouted, "Are you really a heavenly thunder spirit root? Didn't you say that the heavenly thunder spirit root is not tolerated by the Tiandao? Why aren't you dead?" Yun Chujio. You will be strangled to death if you chat like this. Do you know that? Yun Chujio glanced at Goei Batsao, who was squatting in the corner, and said, "Ahem, maybe PM lucky. Well, the reason why I let my spirit beast out for you to see is that I want you to cover for me in the future so that I won't be exposed." Ding Wenru and Qin Linglong nodded, but Gu Liani slapped her thigh. "The heavenly lightning that we met at Zhenggu River couldn't be trying to kill you, right? We weren't all implicated by you, right?" Yun Chujio. Ding Wenru and Qin Linglong hadn't thought of this before. After hearing Gu Liani's words, the way they looked at Yun Chujio became even more strange. They even felt that the ice tremor was most likely caused by this unlucky guy in front of them. Otherwise, why would there be ice tremors and heavenly lightning all of a sudden? Yun Chujio touched her nose. Although there was no evidence to suggest that the ice tremor and heavenly lightning were related to her, this guy still felt a little guilty. There was an 80% chance that they were really here for her? This guy felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward, so he quickly changed the topic. Coincidence? It's purely a coincidence. Well, you guys should hurry up and cultivate. Don't think about these useless things. Ding Wenru and the other two saw her twinkling eyes and looked at each other. They thought that they had clung onto one leg, but they did not expect that they had fallen in love with a jinx. But they were already in the boat of a thief, so they could not go back on their words. Moreover, they were not heartless. If it were not for Yun Chujio, they might not have passed the assessment, let alone enter the 10 Directions Academy. So some things could only be kept in their bellies. Yun Chujio saw that Ding Wenru and the other two were cultivating, so she waved at Goei Batsao. Goei Batsao jumped in front of Yun Chujio with a very obedient look. Then there was no then. Yun Chujio hit Goei Batsao with one palm and scattered it. It was neat and clean to vent her anger. Chapter 55-67. A big piece of news. Goei Batsao almost died from anger. This irritating girl who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance really angered it to death. Just wait and see. HMH, Goei Batsa'o's revenge, 10 years is not too late. Let's wait and see. In the next few days, everything went according to plan. Yun Chujio and the others also gradually adapted to the life of the 10 Directions Academy. The place that Hei Shinjio was most willing to go to every day was the canteen. Not only was there good food to eat, there was also gossip to listen to. It was simply a good place for leisure and entertainment. On this day, Yun Chujio was eating and drinking in the mountains. She heard many people talking about the recruitment of the law enforcement team. Have you heard? The law enforcement team is starting to recruit people. Hurry up and eat. After eating, we will go and register. It would be awesome to be able to join the law enforcement team. Not only will you be able to occupy a good position during class, but you'll also be more well-informed. The most important thing is that you're awe-inspiring. That's right. Look at how awe-inspiring Senior Tao Quan is. Even though he's an audit student, an official student would usually not provoke him. Ding Wenru was slightly moved. She asked Yun Chujio in a low voice, "Ching Ching, should we go and register?" Yun Chujio chewed on the chicken drumstick in her hand as she said, "If you guys are willing to go, then go. I'm not going anyway. But it would be great to be able to join the law enforcement team." Ding Wenru said with some envy. "I'm lazy." Ding Wenru. In the end, Ding Wenru didn't go either. What a joke. Yun Chujio didn't even go to the law enforcement team. What was she going to do? Was she looking for trouble? 2 days later, Yun Chujio saw Fan Chi in the law enforcement team. Fan Chi saw Yun Chujio and his eyes were filled with malice and threat. Yun Chujio walked past him expressionlessly, but there was a villain in her heart. Come and provoke me. Little scumbag, come and be pretentious. Life is so boring. However, Fan Chi didn't do anything. He probably hadn't found his footing yet, so he didn't dare to act rashly. On this day, Yun Chujio was sitting on the bed and studying the stone in her hand when Ding Wenru came running back. Ching, I heard a big news. What big news? Yun Chujio asked lazily. Didn't we hear in the cafeteria that a freshman directly entered the upper house? I heard that a few belles of the upper house got jealous because of this freshman. TSK, I heard that if it wasn't tea for their strong backgrounds and excellent results, they would definitely be severely punished, Ding Wenru said with a gossipy face. Gu Liani asked curiously, isn't it just a freshman? There are so many people in the upper house, and it's not like those beauties have never seen a man before. Is there a need to be so embarrassed? What do you know? I heard that the freshman not only has outstanding talent, but he also has an extraordinary bearing. In just a few days, he has already bewitched those girls from the upper house. I heard that some of the female lecturers were also interested. TSK, he is really a catch-all. The more Ding Wenru spoke, the more excited she became, as if she had really seen that scene. Yun Chujio curled her lips. It's nothing more than a rumor. No matter how outstanding a person is, it's impossible for everyone to like him. Do you think he is a spirit stone? Ding Wenru immediately argued, Ching, don't you believe it? Now that the entire 10 Directions Academy has spread, everyone says that this new student is even more outstanding than Ling Feng and the 4th young master. More outstanding than the 4th young master? That's really a character. After all, what is the name of this new student? Gu Liani asked curiously. Chapter 5568, Getting Punished. Ding Wenru was amused. That new student's surname is quite special. His surname is Bei, and his name is Yu. Yun Chujio was slightly disappointed. Beiyu? It seemed that he was not a gigolo, but that was also true. How could a gigolo come to the 10 Directions Academy to attend school all of a sudden? Gu Liani was even more curious. Hearing what you said, this Beiyu is really not simple. It's just a pity that he's in the upper house. Not just us, even the people in the middle house can't see his true appearance. Although we can't see him in person, we can still see his portrait. I heard that there are already people with active minds starting to print the Atlas of the Prodigies of the 10 Directions Academy. When the time comes, there will definitely be Beiyu on it. Really? That's not bad. When the time comes, let's buy one and have a look. Yun Chujio's interest was waned. Why would she still want to buy an atlas? This group of shallow women. Forget it, let's secretly hide the portrait of the gigolo under the blanket to calm down. After a few days, Ding Wenru really bought an album of the prodigies of the Academy of 10 Directions. She pointed at the few people on it and commented. Yun Chujio also went over to take a look. When she saw the image of Beiyu, the last bit of doubt in her heart disappeared. Although this Beiyu also looked cold and aloof, he did not look like Di Biming at all. On this day, it was Lecturer Ouyang's spiritual energy class again. Hei Xinjiu pretended to sit cross-legged. Her expression was very serious and focused, but in reality, she was thinking about what to eat for lunch. Lecturer Ouyang's last spot check on Yun Chujio was also on a whim. Usually, he did not care about the students who were listening in, as long as no one caused trouble. Therefore, Hei Xinjiu did not have any pressure in this class. Before the class ended, Lecturer Ouyang said seriously, "The semester has started for almost a month, so I will conduct a small test in the next class. If anyone fails, I will punish them severely." Hei Xinjiu's good mood immediately vanished. She did not know what the content of Lecturer Ouyang's small test was. If it was a random check on spiritual beasts, it would be terrible. She was thinking about the test in her heart. Therefore, as soon as Lecturer Ouyang announced the end of the class, She stood up and walked out, completely forgetting the rules of letting the official students go first. Ding Wenru, who was beside her, did not expect Yun Chujio to suddenly stand up and leave. When she wanted to pull her away, Yun Chujio had already taken a few steps forward. At this moment, someone shouted, "Yen Qingqing, stop right there. You actually dared to snatch the job. How outrageous." Yun Chujio finally regained her senses. She turned her head and saw that the person who spoke was Fan Chi. Yun Chujio frowned slightly. Following the principle of keeping a low profile, she walked back to her original position. After sitting down, she said, "I was sleepwalking just now." "Fan Chi, do you think PM a 3-year-old child? Sleepwalking? What a joke." "Tao Quan, Yen Qingqing is an auditing student. How are you going to deal with her?" Fan Chi looked at Tao Quan with some arrogance. Although Tao Quan was a senior, Fan Chi had never taken an audit student seriously, so he naturally wouldn't be too polite to Tao Quan. Tao Quan, on the other hand, didn't care about Fan Kai's attitude. He smiled and said, "Since she has violated the rules, she naturally can't be let off lightly. This new student, if you don't abide by the rules, you will be punished to dry 100 gene of well salt. If you can't finish it, don't come to class." The moment Tao Quan's words left his mouth, everyone's gaze fell on Yun Chujio. It was a strange thing to say. Misty Lake was a freshwater lake, but most of the water pavilions in the 10-sided waterside pavilion had salt wells. After brining the brine from the salt wells, they went through a few processes and finally brewed it into well salt. This process was very tiring. Brewing 100 gene of well salt could be said to be a relatively heavy punishment. Chapter 5569, I accept the punishment. Ding Wenru looked at Yun Chujio worriedly. She was not worried about the 500 kilograms of well salt, but that her ancestor would go crazy. After spending time with her for the past few days, she finally realized that this guy in front of her would not accept any grievances if he did not rub the sand in his eyes. This was the 10 Directions Academy. If they were to make a fuss, it would not be good. To Ding Wenru's surprise, Yun Chujio pursed her lips and said with her head lowered, "All right, I accept the punishment." Ding Wenru was not the only one who was surprised. Even Tao Quan was surprised. He had thought that this new student would defend himself. When the time came, he would take the opportunity to suppress and punish these new students. He did not expect this new student to be so honest. She accepted the punishment directly. She didn't even beg for mercy. But that was also true. Her cultivation was so low, and she didn't seem to have a big background, so she naturally didn't dare to argue. Thinking of this, he looked at Yun Chujio with even more contempt. "If that's the case, then you can come back to class when you have finished drying 100 gene of well salt." Yun Chujio nodded dejectedly and didn't say anything. Fan Chi watched from the side and curled his lips. She was just an audit student. He could easily make her suffer. This was only the beginning. She would have to suffer in the future. To dare to ruin his plans, he was really courting death. A small disturbance was stirred up just like that. After the official births, the audit students also left one after another. Ding Wenru looked at Yun Chujio, who was hanging her head in silence, and comforted, "Qingqing, you don't have to worry. The 3 of us will help you dry the salt when the time comes. We'll be able to complete the mission very quickly." Yun Chujio still had her head lowered and her shoulders were slightly trembling. "They'll go back to the dormitory first." After she finished speaking, she covered her face and rushed out of the hall of teaching. The spectating students who saw this scene looked at each other and had their own thoughts. There were some who sympathized, some who gloated, and some who sighed in their hearts. The status of the spectating students was so low. This Yen Qingqing had only walked a few steps ahead, and she had to be punished so severely. It was really unfair. Ding Wenru's 4 neighbors naturally wouldn't let go of this good opportunity to add insult to injury. They sneered at Ding Wenru and the other 2. "Teehee, how is it? I told you that the 4 of you who can't even make it to the stage aren't worthy of entering the 10 Directions Academy. See, you've only entered the academy for a few days and you're already. That Yen Qingqing is a piece of trash." Previously, when she was questioned by lecturer Ouyang, she actually fainted on the podium. This time, she violated the academy's rules again. I've never seen such a stupid person. And the three of you, I reckon that you don't even understand Lecturer Ouyang's lecture, right? If you fail the next class, there will be a good show to watch. Ding Wenru and the other two were naturally furious. However, they were worried that Yun Chujio would run out crying. They glared at them for a few times before rushing back to the dormitory. The three of them were extremely worried. Could this Yen Qingqing be too traumatized and unable to accept it? The more they thought about it, the more worried they became. They wished they could grow wings and fly back to the dormitory as soon as possible. However, when they returned to the dormitory, they immediately fed their worries to the dogs. This was because they saw that Yun Chujio was crossing her legs and eating a chicken drumstick. How could she be the slightest bit sad? Ding Wenru gritted her teeth. She was also confused. How could this fellow be someone who would swallow his anger? Previously in Ascending Heaven Dock, those who offended this fellow were all killed by her. The reason why she accepted the punishment so readily was definitely for another reason. Tell me, why did you accept the punishment? Ding Wenru asked unhappily. Chapter 5570 Introspection Workshop. Aya, you guys don't know. When I heard that Tao Quan said that he couldn't come back to class until he finished basking in salt, I almost laughed out loud. I think that Tao Quan is 120 times more pleasing to the eye. He is really my savior. I was originally worried about what to do for the next Spirit Energy class quiz, but he helped me so much. Do you think I wouldn't be happy? Hey, Shinjio said proudly. Ding Wenru and the other two. But I heard that it's very hard to dry salt in the well, and you have to finish 100 kilograms of it. I'm afraid you'll have to finish it in 10 days or half a month. What about your class? Qin Linglong asked worriedly. Yun Chujio shrugged her shoulders. It doesn't matter. A good-for-nothing like me is useless in class. This fellow had already made up his mind. She wanted to delay until the big exam so that she would not have to attend class. It was simply wonderful. As for how she would pass the big exam, she could only deal with it as it came. Ding Wenru and the other two wanted to persuade her, but they did not know where to start, so they could only let her be. The next day, when Ding Wenru and the other two went to class, Hei Shinjio sauntered to the self-reflection workshop. Yun Chujio saw the words self-reflection workshop on the plaque and her eyes curved. Self-reflection workshop? In her eyes, this was a peaceful place. Yun Chujio pushed the door open and walked in. What greeted her eyes was a bulletin board with the procedures and precautions for drying well salt written on it. Yun Chujio looked at it once and continued walking in. She saw a salt well about 3 feet in diameter with some solidified brine around the well. There was a tackle at the well's mouth. There was a rope that went all the way down to the bottom. It was probably used to draw brine. There was a bungalow behind the salt well. There was mist coming out from the windows and the open door. Someone was probably boiling salt. Yun Chujio strolled in and saw 2 men stirring 2 large pots of brine. The 2 men were also wearing the clothes of an audience member, so they should have been punished as well. One of them saw Yun Chujio and whistled, "Yo, little junior sister, are you being punished? This job is not something that delicate little girls like you can do. Why don't you beg me? I might be kind-hearted and help you do it." The other person laughed. "That's right. Look at your delicate skin and tender flesh. How can you endure such pain? Beg us properly, and we will complete your tasks in passing." Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips and did not say anything. She turned around and left the house. The 2 of them looked at each other and pursed their lips. When the little girls suffered, they would beg them. Putting everything else aside, it was not easy just to absorb the brine. A little girl like her would definitely not be able to endure it. However, they waited and waited for more than 4 hours, but they did not see Yun Chujio coming over to beg them. The 2 of them wondered if the little girl had fallen into the salt well. However, they could not leave during the process of boiling the salt. Moreover, the little girl's life and death had nothing to do with them, so the 2 of them did not go out to check. They only left the house after they had finished boiling the salt and carefully put away the well salt. The 2 of them were stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. They saw the little girl sitting on the recliner, leisurely eating melon seeds. She didn't look like she was here to be punished, but more like she was here for an outing. After the two were stunned for a moment, one of them curled his lips and said, "Little junior sister, are you not planning to complete the mission? If you can't complete the mission, you're not allowed to go to class, and you're not even allowed to go back to the dormitory. Aren't you afraid?" Chapter 5571 had no heaven or earth. Yun Chujio sat up from the recliner and asked in surprise, "What? You said that you are not even allowed to go back to the dormitory?" The person who spoke thought that Yun Chujio was afraid and said proudly, "That's right. If you don't complete the mission, you cannot leave this self-reflection workshop. Otherwise, if you are discovered by the law enforcement team, you will be punished even more severely. Therefore, junior sister, the only people you can ask for are the two of us. Either you give us some benefits or you give yourself to us. Otherwise, you will suffer." Yun Chujio looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Then she lazily laid back on the recliner. "Idiot. It was better not to go back to the dormitory. It was a good opportunity to do some things that were inconvenient to do in the dormitory." The two men saw that Yun Chujio was unmoved, so they pursed their lips. Anyway, they had already completed the mission, so they would just let this unscrupulous girl suffer here. Moreover, this little girl was only considered delicate and pretty at most. Her figure was also average, so there was no need to waste their breath. After the two men left, Yun Chujio entered the house to take a look. In the house, other than the two big pots, there was also a small empty space. It was estimated that the people who had been punished before would spend the night here. Yun Chujio moved closer to the two big pots and took a look. The inside was very clean and there was not a single bit of well salt left. On the contrary, there was a charcoal fire that had just been extinguished in the stove below. The guy's eyes immediately lit up. He took out a few spiritual potatoes and put them in. After thinking for a while, he made a beggar's chicken and threw it in. Soon, the house was filled with a fragrant smell. He didn't have to participate in the assessment, but he could also enjoy the delicious food. It was like killing two birds with one stone. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Yun Chujio took out the stone and pretended to throw it into the stove to burn for fun. The Goei Batsao in her dantian immediately became anxious. It immediately seized control of its body. It hugged the stone and cried, "Can you be more respectful to my parents in the future? If there is no heaven, there is no earth, and there is no me without them. If you continue to be unkind to them, I will fight you to the death. Don't you know that filial piety is the most important thing? You disrespecting my parents is the biggest insult to me. Are you worthy of me? I've gone through life and death with you, and I've done so many things for you. It's fine if you usually scold me, but you actually W. Yun Chujio, go away ba. You promised me before that if I helped you find the stone, you would tell me your background. Now that there's no one else here, can you tell Goei Bakeo's eyes flashed? Alright, then PL'll tell you the truth. I'm just a Goei Batsao. It's just that PM very talented, that's why I'm so outstanding. Yun Chujio said coldly, Goei Batsao, do you think I'm an idiot? I'll give you another chance. If you don't grasp it, don't blame me for getting rid of you. Goei Batsao rolled its eyes. Even if I tell you, you won't believe me. Besides, the more you know, the faster you'll die, understand? Yun Chujio didn't say anything. She didn't continue to threaten it, nor did she continue to ask. Seeing this, Goei Batsao was a little flustered. It mumbled, it's not that I don't want to tell you, it's just that I can't tell you. When the time is right, I will naturally tell you. Yun Chujio remained silent. Goei Batsao was even more flustered. It was so anxious that it shook its arm and almost threw the stone in its hand out. The fellow was shocked. It quickly placed the stone carefully on the ground and said, although I can't tell you my background, I can tell you one thing in return. Chapter 5572 Salt-Baked Chicken. Yun Chujio said calmly, what's the matter? Previously in Supreme City, didn't that spirit master Yen give you a crossword puzzle? I know the answer. It's an extraterrestrial soul. Goei Batsao said proudly. Yun Chujio was almost angered to death. This answer was clearly guessed by her. Alright. Did it even need to tell her? Goebatsao sensed Yun Chujio's thoughts and waved her arms proudly. You only know one thing, but you don't know the other. You thought he was talking about you coming from that strange plane, but in reality, it's not then what's the matter? Yun Chujio asked in confusion. Beyond the heavens, do you know what is beyond the heavens? Look at your head, that's what is called the heavens. There's so much I can't say, you can figure it out yourself. Anyway, you're so smart you'll definitely guess it. Also, PM warning you, if you still don't respect my parents in the future, PLL make sure that you won't be able to have sex with a gigolo. PLL piss you off. Goebatsao said fiercely. Buttface, who was in the spirit beast bag, twitched his mouth. This Goebatsao was on the road of courting death, never to return. As expected, it was a brainless hollow grass, completely incomparable to Buttface. Yun Chujio was naturally very angry, but her mind was focused on the words that Goebatsao had said earlier. What did it mean that the sky was above her head? Wasn't this nonsense? The more Yun Chujio thought about it, the more confused she became. She did not even know when Goebatsao had returned the control of its body to her. She came back to her senses and looked at the stones on the ground. She kept feeling as if she had overlooked something, but she could not catch it at the moment. At this moment, the identity jade tablet started to tremble. She used her spiritual sense to probe inside and Ding Wenru's voice came from inside. It turned out that Ding Wenru had sent a message to Yun Chujio before she returned to the dormitory when she saw that the sky was already dark. After a long while, Ding Wenru replied with a okay. Apparently, she was a little speechless by this guy's reply. The next day, after Yun Chujio had a good night's sleep, she asked Goebatsao to jump into the brine well and help her get a few buckets of brine. She also asked it to use its leaves to stir the big pot of salt. It even said that life was about exercise. Goebatsao was so angry. This damned girl who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. However, it also knew that it had provoked the damned girl yesterday, so it should still coax her. Otherwise, who would help it find its parents in the future? With Goebatsao, this capable general, Yun Chujio quickly gathered 100 jin of well salt. This guy looked at the snow-white well salt and immediately had an idea. He made salt-baked chicken, salt-baked duck, salt-baked goose. Anyway, there was ready-made firewood and free labor. However, the flaw was that from time to time, some students were punished to cook salt. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. When she saw that someone was punished, she sneakily went over and asked, "Brother, do you want salt?" The students who were punished did not believe that Yun Chujio had well salt in her hands at first, but when they saw the salt jar that Yun Chujio took out, they immediately began to bargain. Every time at this time, Hei Shinjio, who was full of drama, would sigh and say, "Brother, to tell you the truth, I have no choice. If I did not have money to spare, who would do such a loss-making business? But I owe a lot of money to the 3 people in my dormitory. There is no money-making business in the lower house, so I have no choice but to sell some salt to earn some money." Chapter 5573 Feng Shui Treasure Land. Since the penalized students could afford a high donation fee, they were naturally not short of money. In order to complete the mission earlier, they would basically buy well salt from Yun Chujio in the end. Hei Shinjio quickly made a huge profit. She felt that this self-examination workshop was simply a treasure land of feng shui. The brine did not cost money, and the firewood did not cost money. As for the free labor of Goebatsao, she only cared about collecting money. She was not afraid of being exposed, because those students who bought well salt from her would only tell the truth if they were stupid. After all, they were cheating. Therefore, Hei Shinjio did not have any psychological burden and replaced the brine in the self-examination workshop with spiritual stones. She happily stuffed them into her storage ring. This fellow even had a wicked expectation that the more students were punished, the better. Only then could she earn more money. However, while chatting with one of the senior students, Yun Chujio learned a piece of news that was definitely not good news for her. According to the rules of the 10 Directions Academy, The auditing students could only study in the lower academy and were not qualified to enter the middle and upper academy. No matter how good their results were, they were not qualified. Of course, the auditing students in the past also did not have good results. After all, their qualifications were limited. Yoon Choo-ji's heart sank. The reason why she came to the 10 Directions Academy was to find a shelter, and also to learn some talisman making and alchemy skills. However, the lower house didn't have these things. It was said that only when she reached the middle house would there be a corresponding branch. She had to think of a way. Therefore, when she was doing business, this guy would fan the flames from time to time. It was nothing more than the same thing. Law enforcement team, my ass. They could do whatever they wanted? They were not lecturers. The rules they were talking about were not the rules of the academy. What right did they have to punish the students? What's wrong with the auditing students? Did the auditing students eat your rice? Why did the auditing students have to be inferior to others? Since the academy received a huge donation fee, they should treat them equally. What right did they have to discriminate against the auditing students? So what if they were not talented? If they were not talented, did they deserve to be treated harshly? Everyone had a chance to make a comeback. A big bug could even turn into a butterfly. At the very least, they could turn into a moth. Why did the students not have the qualifications to enter the middle and upper houses? Therefore, every student who was punished to enter the self-examination square was listless when they came in, but when they went out, they were all aggressive and indignant. As they spread the news, the dissatisfaction that many of the students were already feeling grew stronger. It was just that they lacked a spark. Yoon Choo-ji found out about these developments from Ding Wenru and felt very satisfied. She was not in a hurry and simmered it down slowly. When the time was right, she would play a bigger game. On this day, when lecturer Oh-yang was in class, he suddenly thought of the student who fainted when he saw him. He glanced around and did not find anyone. He frowned and asked, "Why isn't Yen Qingqing here? Did she skip class?" Only then did everyone realize that ever since Yen Qingqing was punished to boil salt, it had been almost 2 months. She had not appeared again. Could it be that she had died in the self-examination workshop? Tao Quan said respectfully, "Lecturer Oh-yang, Yen Qingqing was punished to boil salt in violation of the academy's rules last time. So far, she has not completed her task, so she has not come to class." Fan Chi had been busy dealing with a few female students these days and had forgotten about the matter of Yoon Choo-ji. He sneered in his heart. This was the consequence of offending him. Serves him right. Chapter 55-74. You guys are even worse than handyman lecturer Oh-yang frowned when he heard Tao Quan's words. Because he had not noticed Yoon Choo-ji before, he did not know that Yoon Choo-ji had already been doing hard work for 2 months. He thought that Yoon Choo-ji had only been sent away for a few days, so he did not continue to ask. Although he was a lecturer, there was no need for him to interfere in the affairs of an auditing student. This matter was just left unsolved. After class, Fan Kai's face revealed a sinister expression. Coincidentally, he did not have any plans this afternoon, so he wanted to go and see if Yen Qingqing was dead. If she was not dead, then he would let her learn a lesson. Anyway, the people in the self-reflection workshop did not dare to say anything. Hei Xinjiu was now a person with connections. After all, she had gotten to know many auditing students because of selling salt. As soon as Fan Chi came to the self-examination workshop, someone had informed Yoon Choo-ji. Yoon Choo-ji narrowed her eyes. Well done. When Fan Chi arrived at the self-examination workshop, he saw Yoon Choo-ji pouring the brine into a bucket by the well with sweat all over her face. Fan Chi felt very relieved, but it was far from enough. He said with a fake smile, "Yen Qingqing, how are you? You have been living very comfortably these 2 months, right? Hurry up and kneel down and kowtow to this young master to apologize. I will forgive you if I am magnanimous. Otherwise, I will take half of your life today." Yoon Choo-ji seemed to be shocked. The brine bucket in her hand fell to the ground, and the brine flowed all over the ground. She took 2 steps back and said, "Fan Chi, where did you start with these words? How did I offend you?" Fan Chi smelled the brine. He said in disgust, "How did you offend me? If it weren't for you, Hanbinger, that little hoof would have been mine long ago. Cut the crap and kowtow to admit your mistake, or I'll kill you." Yun Chujio was stunned at first, then she sneered, "Fan Chi, let's not talk about the incident that had nothing to do with me. Even if it had something to do with me, this is the 10 Directions Academy. I'm a student of the 10 Directions Academy. If you kill me, you won't be able to get better. Aren't you afraid of the Academy's rules?" Fan Chi did not know why, but he suddenly became anxious. He sneered and said, "This is a big joke. What kind of bullshit listening student is a student of the 10 Directions Academy? Even if I kill you, no one will pursue it. Just treat it as a dead dog." Yun Chujia's small face flushed red and she was extremely angry. "You don't go too far. So what if you're a listening student? A listening student is also a student of the academy." Fan Chi laughed even more insolently. TSK you have. "And you are also students of the academy? Let me tell you, the academy only accepts useless auditing students like you because of those donation fees. Otherwise, why is your treatment so different from ours? Why can you only stay in the lower academy? You're only slightly stronger than those odd job workers. No, you're not as good as those odd job workers. After all, those odd job workers still have their wages, but you're spending money instead. Ha! A bunch of idiots who have money but no place to spend it." Just as Fan Chi finished speaking, a bystander walked out from the room. The veins on his forehead were bulging, clearly angered by Fan Kai's words. Fan Chi didn't care at all. He was an official student and a member of the law enforcement team. What could this student do to him? Yun Chujio saw the student and quickly said, "Senior Qian Guang, why did you come out? This is none of your business. You'd better go in and boil some salt." Qian Guang looked at Fan Kai's arrogant face and suppressed his anger. "Junior, there's only some misunderstanding between you and Junior Yen. Why are you so aggressive? Forget it." Chapter 5575 was too much of a bully. Fan Chi glanced at the listening student who was speaking and pursed his lips. "What right do you have to speak? Why aren't you rolling in to continue brewing salt? Otherwise, it'll make Tao Quan continue to punish you." Qian Guang was both angry and hateful. However, Fan Chi was an official student and a member of the law enforcement team. He dared to be angry but did not dare to speak up. At this moment, Yun Chujio said with a sobbing voice, "Senior Qian Guang, you'd better hurry in. We're just listening students. We can't be compared to these official students." No matter what, Qian Guang was still a man of 7 feet. It was fine if he was usually bullied, but this Fan Chi was clearly finding fault with him. He was also rude to him. If he tolerated it, it would be too fucking sullen. Therefore, he said angrily, "Don't go too far. What's wrong with auditing students? Since the academy accepted us, we're students of the 10 Directions Academy. If you insist on finding trouble with Junior Yen again, don't blame me for being." Fan Chi was stunned at first, then he curled his lips and said, "Oh, you are really audacious. Are you planning to stand up for this Yen Qingqing? Could it be that you have hooked up with her? You are not picky, but you can also take a fancy to such a character. But it's also true. You are just an auditing student, and you are only fit to hook up with such a character." Qian Guang couldn't take it anymore and immediately threw a punch at Fan Chi. Fan Chi sneered and easily dodged his punch. Then, he threw a punch at Qian Guang as well. Both of them didn't use their spiritual power, but it was obvious that Fan Chi was much more powerful than Qian Guang. In less than 10 moves, Qian Guang was forced to retreat repeatedly, and in a moment of carelessness, he was hit in the face by Fan Kai's punch. Immediately, blood gushed out from his face. Although it was not fatal, it looked extremely horrifying. At this moment, Yun Chujio pounced on him. "Fan Chi, you've gone too far. I'll fight it out with you." Fan Chi subconsciously kicked her, and Yun Chujio was sent flying with a whoosh, crashing heavily on the ground. With a puff, she spat out a mouthful of blood. She clutched her chest and pointed at Fan Chi. "No, you've gone too far. Well, go to the law enforcement team to sue you." Although Fan Chi felt that he did not kick Yun Chujio, he did not think too much about it. Seeing Yun Chujio's miserable state, he felt relieved and said arrogantly, "I'll go to the law enforcement team to sue you." Go to the law enforcement team to sue me? It's useless even if you go to the chancellor of the lower house to sue me. You're just a bystander. Even if I kill you today, no one will stand up for you. As Fan Chi spoke, he approached Yun Chujio step by step. His eyes were filled with a manic killing intent. At this moment, many angry voices came from behind. "Stop!" Fan Chi turned his head and saw that many bystanders had gathered at the entrance of the self-examination workshop. Their faces were filled with shock and anger. Fan Chi was shocked, and the fury in his heart suddenly weakened. He looked at Chen Guang, whose face was bleeding non-stop, and then looked at Yun Chujio, who had blood on the side of her mouth. He could not help but feel a little regretful. Although the students did not have any status, he had gone a little overboard this time. It was strange to say that he was very anxious just now, and some words even came out of his mouth without thinking. Could it be that he had not rested well recently? He was about to say a few polite words and leave this troubled place, but he saw Yun Chujio stand up with some staggered steps. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and her face was full of grief and indignation. "Fan Chi, you are really going too far. Didn't you look down on the auditing students? Didn't you say that we auditing students are not even as good as odd job workers? Today, I would rather risk being expelled from the 10 Directions Academy to clear the name of our auditing students. I want you to kneel down and apologize to all the auditing students." Chapter 5576. As Yun Chujio spoke, she slapped her palm towards Fan Chi. After Fan Chi dodged her palm, he sneered and said, "Since you overestimate yourself, then don't blame me for being ruthless." As he spoke, Fan Kai's hands were like hooks, grabbing towards Yun Chujio's front heart. This move was a little sinister. After all, Yun Chujio was a girl. Yun Chujio's eyes deepened. He was really courting death. If it wasn't for the principle of making the best use of everything, she would have long let Goei Batsao kill this Fan Chi. After she dodged Fan Kai's move, the two of them started to fight. Very quickly, Yun Chujio was at a disadvantage. However, she did not have the intention to retreat. She gritted her teeth and said, "I Yen Qingqing would rather die standing than die sitting." So what if I'm a student listening in? A student listening in is also a human. He also has a backbone. Fan Chi laughed sinisterly. "I'd like to see whether it's your bones or my fists that are hard." As Fan Chi said that, he slapped his palm again, and Yun Chujio was thrown out violently. She spat out another mouthful of blood, and her face turned pale. Those audit students who were watching could no longer bear to watch. Could it be that they were not even as good as a little girl? She was right. Although they were spectating students, and although they were useless snacks donated by their family's money, they were still human beings. They also had integrity. At worst, they would be kicked out of the 10 Directions Academy. What was so great about that? Thus, those angry spectating students immediately rushed towards Fan Chi, wishing they could smash him into a meat paste. Even in his dreams, Fan Chi did not expect that those spectating students actually had the guts to gang up on him. Before he could react, he was beaten half to death. If those students did not have a shred of rationality left, they would have been beaten to death long ago. Chen Guang and the others pressed Fan Chi down and knelt on the ground. They felt extremely relieved. What was wrong with the official students? What was wrong with the law enforcement team? Weren't they still going to kneel down and admit their mistakes? As the director of this big scene, Jiao secretly stood at the side. He felt that it was about time. Only then did he cough and say, "Cough, cough, 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 everyone stop." Only then did everyone stop. They looked at Fan Chi, who was like a dead dog on the ground, and felt some lingering fear. They had beaten Fan Chi to such a state, so they were afraid that they would be punished. Moreover, they would be punished severely. At this time, Yun Chujio said word by word, "Everyone, this matter started because of me and has nothing to do with you. Therefore, Yen Chi." Hearing Yun Chujia's words, everyone suddenly felt embarrassed and said, Junior Yen, this Fan Chi hurt people for no reason. How can it be your fault? Yun Chujio smiled bitterly, because he is an official student and we are auditing students. This alone is better than any reason. Everyone immediately fell silent. Yes, just because of this, they had to let the official students have their meals in the cafeteria, let the official students have their classes in the teaching hall, and let the official students have their good dorms. They could not even fight back when they were beaten and scolded. They were even less qualified to enter the middle and upper house. At this time, Yun Chujio continued, Everyone, I can't avoid being expelled from the 10 Directions Academy this time, but I have received your favor, so I want to make my expulsion more meaningful. So, I will take this matter to the Chancellor of the lower house and get more benefits for all the students listening in. Our family donated a huge donation fee, and we also cultivate diligently like those formal students. There is no reason for us to be treated differently. Although it may not necessarily succeed, and although I may be hit by retaliation because of this, I am willing. Chapter 5577 serves her right to earn money. Those listening students could not help but feel touched when they heard Yun Chujia's words. Previously, they had secretly ridiculed this Yen Qingqing for being too greedy for money. After all, she had earned a lot of money by selling well salt. But now, it seemed that they had made a huge mistake. Such a kind girl deserved to earn money. A good person would get a good reward. Such a good girl who sacrificed herself for others would naturally get a good reward. Some people could not bear it, but when they thought of the consequences of being expelled from the 10 Directions Academy, they immediately lowered their heads. However, someone also said, Junior Yen, don't worry. We will testify for you. If it weren't for this Fan Chi forcing you, you wouldn't have fought with him to protect yourself. That's right, Junior Yen. We will plead on your behalf. I believe that the law enforcement team will not punish you without any reason. That's right. We have so many people to help you testify. Even the law enforcement team should not go too far. Yun Chujia's eyes flashed. Help her speak up? No, that was not what she wanted. Everyone could only be in the same boat together if they were in the same boat. However, there was no rush. Soon there would be helpers coming. Yun Chujio nodded her head gratefully and got someone to carry Fan Chi out of the self-reflection square. As soon as they left the self-examination square, they saw a group of people walking towards them. Everyone's heart immediately sank. The people who came over were members of the law enforcement team. There was the law enforcement team led by Tao Quan, and there was also the official law enforcement team led by Yuan Hui. Fan Chi instantly had a backbone. His face twisted as he shouted, Senior Yuan Hui, you have to make a decision for me. This group of bystanders ate a bear's heart and a leopard's guts and beat me up to this extent. Yuan Hui's face became even gloomier. It was not that he had a good relationship with Fan Chi, but that the authority of the formal students was not allowed to be challenged. He looked at Tao Quan with an unfriendly gaze and said in a low voice, Tao Quan, I'll leave this matter to you. Tao Quan hurriedly said in a fawning manner, Senior Yuan, don't worry. I'll definitely give you and Junior Fan a satisfactory explanation. When he looked at Yun Chujio and the other students, his expression suddenly changed and he said coldly, Are you crazy? How dare you beat up the official students? Do you want to be expelled from the academy? Tell me, who is the culprit? Those students hurriedly told the story. The main point was that Fan Chi had brought this upon himself and it had nothing to do with others. Tao Quan waved his hand and said, That's enough. There's no need to say any more. I understand. This matter was completely caused by Yen Qingqing. Yen Oingcheng, previously you were punished to go to the self-reflection workshop to dry salt because you violated the classroom discipline. I didn't expect you to be unrepentant and beat up Junior Fan until he was seriously injured. Chapter 5578. There is justice in the heart and nothing to fear. Tao Quan was choked by Yun Chujia's question and said angrily, No matter what the reason is, the listening students shouldn't have made a move against the official students. I don't believe that if it wasn't for your fault first, Junior Fan would have made a move for no reason. Speaking of which, you brought this upon yourself. The listening students were about to explode with anger. This Tao Quan was too much. He was totally groveling to the official students and treating them as his tools to please the official students. Yun Chujio sneered, "Oh? According to you, if the official beat the student to death, he deserved it even if he died? Did he ask for it?" Although Tao Quan wanted to please the official students, he knew that he couldn't admit it. Otherwise, he would definitely provoke the public, so he said, "Don't talk about him. In short, you have violated the rules of the academy and cannot continue to stay in the 10 Directions Academy. Why don't you quickly admit your mistake to Junior Fan? Otherwise, there will be other punishments before you are expelled." Yun Chujio suddenly straightened her back, and her pale face was full of a cold smile. "You really want to add to any crime? And why don't you say anything? I am clearly the victim, but now I want to apologize and even be expelled from the 10 Directions Academy. I've really learned a lot. In the 10 Directions Academy, being born officially is heaven. Even if there is a threat to my life, I can't fight back. I can only wait for death. I want to apologize. I didn't do anything wrong. We are all born and raised. Why should we audit students be inferior to others? If you are willing to be punished, then fine. At worst, I'll just risk my life. If my death can improve the audit students' treatment a little bit, then my death will be worth it." After saying that, Yun Chujio directly closed her eyes and looked as if she was ready to die. The audit students who were watching were all shocked. Yen Qingqing, a little girl, had the courage and determination to fight against injustice and evil forces. Compared to her, they were simply unworthy of being human. Thinking back, before they entered the 10 Directions Academy, they were still in high spirits. They were also a bully, a hero. How did they become submissive doormen now? What about their courage? What about their courage? Was it because of the disappointment in the eyes of the elders of the family? Was it because of the official disdain? Or was it because of the numbness of habit? At this moment, something seemed to have awakened in their hearts. They only understood later that that thing was called self-respect. It was true that their qualifications were not high, and it was true that they lived a happy life, but they also had their dignity and pride. Someone shouted, "Junior Yen, we will accompany you." This shout was like a bowl of water poured into a boiling pot of oil. Immediately, the crowd became excited and clamored, "Yes, we will accompany you. This is not a matter for you alone. This is a matter for all of US audit students. At worst, we will all drop out of school. Yes, we will all drop out of school. Let the 10 Directions Academy spit out our donation money. Why do we have to spend so much money and live a life worse than a handyman? Exactly, it's not like I have no money or place to spend it. With so many spirit stones, even if we throw them into the water, we can still hear the sound." Yun Chujio used her sleeve to wipe away her moved tears and said with a choked voice, "Good. Everyone is indeed courageous and courageous. I, Yen Qingqing, am truly fortunate to be able to become your schoolmates. With justice in our hearts, we have nothing to fear. What we have done is worthy of the heavens and earth. There is nothing to be afraid of." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.